Welcome to this episode of the Superyacht Laundry podcast. It's lovely to be back. We've obviously had a short break, and although it's just before Christmas for us, this will be going out after Christmas in the new year of 2026. Now, I couldn't think of a better way to start 2026 than a story from a lovely lady that I've known for quite some time now. I literally see you as kind of like a mother of the yachting. It's the beautiful Caroline Blatter, Yacht Storage, Superyacht Services guide. How are you? You're not ready?
Very well, and I'm very well, thank you. And it's frightening to think that we'll have had Christmas by the time this goes. So let's hope we all survive.
We bring each other running tray.
I know. We haven't got tinsel wrapped around ourselves either.
No.
We have known each other for a long time, and it's been very special. Actually, I count you as a friend, Cherise. So it is. It's from seeing you when you were still a stewardess on board, falling in love with Tim.
Yeah, falling in love with Tim, my lucky self. It was 10 years this year, me and Tim together. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, 10 long years.
And
But romance sometimes happens at sea, doesn't it? So I think being the Superyacht Laundry podcast, we talk about how we managed to get into the industry. And yours is a love story.
It is a love story. What better way to be? Absolutely. I trained to be a physiotherapist, for people who may not know, and I worked in Australia for a while, and I was then working at St. George's Hospital in London. Absolutely loved what I did. I loved being a physio. And through various channels at school with sisters, etc., as it happens to be, Andrew and my path we came across each other again. I'd met him when I was younger, but our paths crossed again, and yeah, it was a pretty big, passionate love story of falling in love with a yachty. And suddenly I found myself leaving St. George's and joining a beautiful swan that he was running in the Med. And it was, landing with both feet into it big time, and running the boat two-handed. So that was my introduction to yachting.
Yeah, but you're quite well traveled even before you met your darling husband.
I was. So by birth, actually, my family are Argentine. So I was born in Argentina.
Wow.
And moved to Europe when I was 7 and lived in Brussels. So I learned to read and write in French before English. And I was at French school till I was 13. And then came across to England when I came, year 8, 13, to England, and then finished my education here, and then went on to university. I was the last batch of physios who didn't do a degree. We became members. It was a physiotherapy diploma in the 80s, and then it became a degree after I finished. My very international background, not completely.
You're living your life in the 80s in London. I bet that would have been big shoulder pads, or did you?
It was, and different hair and all sorts. So yes, it was. But each decade is special for its own way, and what a journey of life. You know how lucky. Life and health are biggest gifts. So it was. So we spent some time in the Med, and Palma became home, which is a very special, dear place to me. And then we spent time in the Caribbean, running a different yacht. So we moved sort of yacht to yacht and did. Andrew spearheaded a couple of massive refits. And in those times, I was either part-time on the boat, or I sort of pursued a little bit of my own development and career. So part of the journey in the 90s was that I qualified as a learning difficulties teacher. And I started a business in Mallorca with another girl where we used to teach the children in the international schools who picked up the children who were having learning challenges, whether that be dyslexia or, particularly in Mallorca, multilingual families. So you'd have foreign parents, child going to school in Spanish, but with also English. So a child of 8 might already have 3 languages rolling around their heads. So I worked in that for about 3 or 4 years till we left the island. So really interesting. And
Really?
managed to make it work with every summer. I left the teaching business we had and joined Andrew on the boat. So it was, for me, it was the best of both worlds. I could do the boat and work together for 4 or 5 months, from, early June right through till October, and then work teaching the rest of the year.
So with the learning difficulties, was that just an interest?
It was, and I was, with my physio side of it, sport has been something, and well-being has always been something important to me. So I was either sort of sport route. I also loved hospital work and holistically looking at people, and neuro was something that I was really interested in, the neurology side of it. And interestingly, with the learning difficulties, there's a neuro side to it. We're talking about the brain, and that was something that really interested me. So actually, for learning difficulties, it brought, in a way, everything together. I've also loved children, so it was teaching people who were 16 and under generally, understanding the neurology. My linguistics came in because I speak 3 languages, so it was good. It was a pot that became Caroline, I suppose. So really interesting.
It's mad how, especially when you're on a line of adventure like that, how different experiences just for some reason end up becoming really handy. And at the time you'll be like, oh, this is completely random. It's surprising how many actually it all comes full circle. And if you didn't have that experience, you probably couldn't be doing what you would.
And you never know. I always say to my children, you never know who you're going to meet. And that was just a conversation on the beach that attaches to Portals that everyone will know. I met somebody and there was an introduction, and her and I sat on the sand together talking, and suddenly there was this wow, I'm really interested. So yeah, I think you just never know who you're going to meet. And that's the yachting industry. We got a job running a very beautiful boat that some people may remember called Zana. She was a beautiful 90-foot new build yawl coming out of what was then Southampton Yacht Services. And that was an incredible, the owner of that vessel, a delightful English family, had spotted Andrew and I working on the Swan that we worked on. And he had observed us in the Club de Mar on Quay 6 working, and made a complete sort of private contact to us to just say, I'm thinking of building this boat, and I'm thinking, might you be interested, and roll on, some time. That's how it happened. And it's a good lesson in life, isn't it? You just never know.
You never know. It's always one of those things. It's like when, when we were all looking for jobs in Antibes and stuff like that, like with me and my friends, the opportunity would never come along. You need to literally be a bit broken, cry, give it all hope, and just let go and just see what happens. And then generally, like the next day, when you stop kind of trying so hard and just go with the flow, that's generally when you have a chat with somebody, your friend rings, it's those serendipitous moments just coming.
Open doors to life. Absolutely.
Yeah. So obviously you fell in love with this gorgeous guy. But we have, one of those things, working with your partner on board. What was Andrew like working with? Let's get down to nitty gritty, We
had a lot of fun, and we were young and very in love and newly married, and had the, adventures of life. We worked well together. We worked really well together. And, we, people are going to now go, Caroline, you can't possibly say that. But we sailed Zana two-handed most of the time, at 90 foot. And we both, it was great. I mean, we would do the odd passage where it was sort of, up to 4 or 5 nights we could do it together. And we worked together, and the idea being that we would then employ people as we needed them. So if we needed work on board, but we worked really, I can't give you any dirty things or, frustrating stories, because we worked really well together as a team, often silent. We would, pick up what the other one was doing. And we had a saying afterwards, actually, which was, we could somehow we had a huge set mainsail, and we could somehow get this mainsail off two-handed, and then, through different hoists and etc., get it onto the dock and fold it in silence perfectly, because we just knew how each of us were doing it. And we used that throughout our marriage, actually, to just say, we can actually work together, and we work really well together. We observe and listen and feed off each other. So we were very, very lucky. We worked well together.
Oh,
and it's give and take on both. It's not always a dream world, but it's both growing together. So very lucky.
It's quite an incredible experience that you got to both enjoy together. And did you have children on board when you were sailing as well?
That was when when we finished, I fell pregnant with Tristan, who now works with me, in the last years of running Zana. So we were on board for 3 or 4 years, and I fell pregnant at the end of that. And actually, I did a transatlantic, 6.5 months pregnant, coming back.
Oh my God.
So I arrived back in Palma. I was fine. I had, checkups in Antigua. I got to know all the gynae. I did gynae in Antigua, Bermuda. Went and had a quick checkup in the Azores. Everything was fine, and sailed back into Palma.
Wow. I don't know if we've got any doctors that listen to this podcast. They might have a mild heart attack. Because you did what? She did the transalert in a different time, a different time.
And, I think as long as you take responsibility for yourself, which I'm a great believer in that we should all do, of course I would step off if there was a problem. So at that point we didn't, and roll on several years, and we did what every yachty should never do, which is buy a boat. And
oh no,
we lived on our own cruising boat. That was our sort of first home when Tristan was a year old. So yes, we had 1-1-year-old. By the time we moved off the boat, only because a hurricane took the boat, because we just couldn't make the decision to move off the boat, I had 3 children. So
hang on a second. So what you lost the boat to a hurricane?
To a hurricane, Hurricane Ivan in Grenada in 2004.
Oh my God! Wait, so basically out.
Yeah. So we'd been on board for 6.5 years by then. So Tristan was just 7, 5 and 2, I think they were, when we lost the boat, and we'd moved on when Tristan was. That's right, Tristan was 1. And we had 1 child. So the idea behind the boat was, why buy a flat when we love being something in Mallorca, when we love being together, but I'm no longer working and Andrew is working, and he worked for a tugboat, a beautiful conversion, actually, great owner, and did some refit work. And the idea was that I would sort of, if the boat was going to be based in Turkey for the summer, we would sail our boat and go there. All a bit dreamy. It didn't quite work out that way, as none of these things do. And I ended up being based in Palma we were there for 3 years. We lived on our boat in the Club Nautico, and we had the boat that Andrew was running there too.
Having lost the boat, like how did that change you? Like losing the boat, like that?
It was tough. It was really,
were on it, everything.
Yeah. We managed to rescue a few bits. Andrew ended up, he was actually on the first Red Cross flight. So we were in Antigua at that stage, and we'd because insurance was the way, or is the way insurance is, at that point in time, everybody had to be south of a certain latitude with their vessels, which is what we were. Tristan was 7 and a bit, and he'd done a bit of schooling by then, but a bit a la yachty, on and off, when it sort of worked, and I homeschooled them on the boat. And we'd already started our guide by then. So actually the boat was in Grenada. We were in Antigua. The 2 older ones had started school, and that's when it happened. So actually Andrew flew down on the first Red Cross flight and saw, the photographs we have are unbelievable, saw the devastation. Our boat was on the hard and had fallen over and had concertina. So it was pretty damaged. There was also looting that happened. So stuff got stolen. But, some of our stuff we got back, and we have. So, yeah, you learn, don't you, through life. Life is about, I believe life is a learning experience for all of us, and it never ends. And it's letting go is one of the big things. So that was a real letting go moment for the children too. It was their home.
All the children, you're starting a business as well. I mean, did you had Tristan when you started the business?
We had Tristan. We had when we started the business. Yes, the year that we started was the year that Miles, my number 3, was born, and he's just turned 23. So Andrew, it was the two of us. Andrew was doing the research. We were on our boat at the time. We sailed. In fact, we were on our boat and we used to sail up and down the islands, and we then lost our boat 2 years later. So we used to sail up and down the islands researching with the children, which was really special.
Amazing. So let's get into the guide itself. Where did the idea come from? Why did you want to do it?
The idea came from living on our cruising vessel, wanting to work together. Andrew didn't want to be away from us as a husband and a father, and being a yacht captain, as everyone will know, that is what the reality is. And we wanted to try and make a way somehow ourselves. So it was, a business idea. And it really came from the internet in 2002 was, just beginning. And people would contact us through email asking us, gosh, we're coming transatlantic. You're in Antigua. The story is... There was a lovely Antigua sales. Graham used to make the most amazing awnings, and people would contact us to say, is Graham still there? Can you make an awning for us? Or we've blown a sail out, or we're going to need provisioning, or do you know who could come and pick up the boss from the airport, because he really needs, a vehicle with 10, but it has to be impeccable and clean. Anyway, and it started from that, giving advice out of Andrew was actually writing for Boat International. He was a part of the sort of Superyacht team when Christian Chalmin owned the business, and Roger-Line Verco was Superyacht editor, who became a very good friend. And so Andrew used to do a lot of the correspondence from the Caribbean. He would be flown to different islands and go and do some of the new boat reviews, take photographs, etc. But, there's no salary in that at all. So he actually discussed with Boat International doing this as an idea of the recommendation side of things, of having in each destination a group of recommended services that people could use. And that's, they didn't go with it, we did. And that's how really the whole, I say platform now, but in those days, it really was very much a guidebook. So it was collecting recommendations from people on board. We called it, captains recommended, but it never was just captains. It was chefs, it was stewardesses, it was mates, getting information from them and collating that together, and then creating this. The first one was the Caribbean guidebook.
I think it's fantastic in a way, because it is, what is different with yours to the others is it really tuned into a recommendation. So it is like calling your buddy that has been there or is in that port to go, I've got to get this done. Is it still okay at such and such, or has that person left and then it's all, you're going to get ripped off there, and, churning in, because we do, yachties are a suspicious lot, especially when you put yacht in front of anything, and you're
super. Yes, it's even more.
Aussie tax is a real thing that we like, but also reputation, getting a good job done, because unfortunately it is the land of, a million lives for cats. Do you know what I mean? There's people that are still around where they have done some like really bad things, and for some reason, rip people off and everything else. But the industry is a great hidey hole for like people to reinvent themselves. So tuning into that trusted voices, the people that you've, worked with and sweated with, I think is a really nice way of going about things, rather than just well, anybody could pay for advertising and say anything.
They can, and we always had our benchmark, I suppose, at the time was the Michelin Guide, which was sort of the Michelin stars, before, well before TripAdvisor, there was the Michelin Guide, which was the stars, and it still is today, isn't it? If a chef or a restaurant can have these Michelin stars, it's really amazing. And we don't even really have that in our industry, but we wanted to bring this level to, and it's something, this ethos that we carry on today. It's a huge amount of work behind the scenes that people don't see, because we absolutely check every single recommendation that comes in. It's followed up. So when a captain recommends, or a vessel, whoever it is on that vessel, we get an email to say that they're recommending, or they've filled in a form on our platform to say they've recommended. Each one is replied to and pursued, because we're not looking for recommendations from within the office, because that's not the point. And we drop. I'm a very positive person, and I don't believe in slandering services or people publicly. It's just not our way. And we have dropped services over the years when we get negative feedback. And we approach the service too to say, we're not going to name and shame, because I don't agree with that either. We will let you know that it's somebody who has said that actually they didn't get a good service. What was the problem? And there's, most often I've learnt in my life, that there's two sides, aren't there, to stories?
Yeah.
And, you find out that it's a vessel that hadn't paid the bill. So no wonder the service didn't finish they didn't finish the engine fitting, because they hadn't been paid, or there's always a story. So it's quite interesting to find out the grassroots, and then we'll either drop the service, or we'll give them a chance and say, if we hear one more negative, you're out.
That sounds like common sense, Caroline.
But obviously, industry and common sense don't always go together, as you and I know from the work we do.
If you think about TripAdvisor as well, it's death by social media, if you know what I mean. So kind of clearing, like you said, it could be a really terrible review, but from the worst customer you've ever known. And I think your adult approach to, right, okay, well, there is two sides to every story, but if there's 5 people saying that you're no good, that kind of, lends weight to, unfortunately, we're going to drop you. So that's quite a grown-up way of doing things, I think, in all of the noise that's going on, with everything in the industry and beyond,
No, and we are not. There are plenty more services that are really good that aren't on our platform, but if they haven't been recommended or brought to our attention, we can't put them on there. So what we don't do as a business is we don't scour internet directories or yellow pages, or we're not scouring Facebook to try and get more services on. It's very much coming from within the industry, so we rely on people recommending and sharing, because actually I hope it's a really good experience for somebody on board, whoever they are, whether it's a decky who's had the most amazing kite surfing lessons to, the mate who's worked in the industry for a long time and has decided that they really need to do something with their finances and contacts, Reedman and Tim, to somebody else, who's needing a massive 10-year Lloyd's, for a register to go to a shipyard. We've all got the information there, haven't we? So share it.
No, it's like I said, I think it's actually more, with the explosion of the internet, because obviously I know your guides personally. And if you were underway, because back when I was on board, internet generally was only for guests. And if you could use it, you had to wait until you were ashore, which if you're trying to get ahead of the game, you're at sea. So, the guides, when there is no internet, God forbid there's no internet, but it does happen. You can still crack on and get ideas of where you're going to go and who you're going to contact.
Yeah, and we only print the Caribbean. We cover the world. So what started as a Caribbean guide in 2002 ended up being 5 books for the world and printing, 20-something thousand copies in sort of 2014 to suddenly COVID. And then now we only do 2,500, which is the Caribbean guide, and the rest of the world is online on a platform. And it's really interesting to get feedback from different ages and different generations as to what they use. And there is, even if you've had internet and that grown up with it all your life, there is still something about searching in a book and getting the information very quickly, which you don't get on the internet. And it's difficult to validate on the internet too. And now with AI, it's even more challenging, isn't it?
Yeah.
You don't know where the sources are. So actually, I think sometimes if you opened up, because we've got the Caribbean, if you opened up St. Lucia, suddenly you've got 20 pages of thorough vetted information on St. Lucia, and you can quickly find out what you're looking for. And then you can go onto the websites and the platform.
For me, it's one of those things, it was just quite nice, to get a feel for the place. Because, I might have been looking for a few things, but then there's a map and it's kind of like you're kind of working out. Do you know what I mean? Like you can relate to areas and spaces and stuff like that. So not only is it what you want, but where is it? And I would just quite liked it because you become familiar with the area, the port itself, and how and what, like where things are clustered together. Because generally you'll get a whole bunch of similar companies like, smushed together and do things. So I just really liked it. It's just also if you're going to somewhere that you've never been before, I don't know, there was something really, I don't know, visceral about holding a book and like, I don't know, maybe I'm about passion. The kids today will be like, what is she talking about?
Yeah, and the introductions, the introductions we do to each physical chapter in the Caribbean, and we work quite hard at not trying to be a lonely planet, but trying to bring in a bit of interest, but the yachting side of it. And we never know who's reading it because you can't track a book. You know how many copies you've printed, but when we get feedback, Liam had said to me he really enjoys reading those introductions, and it was like, oh great, at least one person does, and now I've got 2. So that's good. Helpful.
So the business has started. When did you come back to Blighty? This cold. Well, actually, it's sunny today, so I'm not going to moan about it too much. But when did you come back to the island?
So we left Antigua in 2012 to come back to England for Tristan at that point, who was slightly point of no return. For anyone who has children and academics, it's year 9 is the sort of pre-GCSEs in the English educational system. And we sort of felt we certainly didn't have the finances for boarding schools, and nor would we have ever wanted to send off children away, be on one side of the Atlantic and send them away. So it was a sort of big family move back to England, with Andrew doing a fair amount of traveling, actually, covering the Med and also flying back to the Caribbean. We had teams in different places, and big shout out to the people that we've worked with, because it's been a family business with amazing people we've met along the way. Everybody's been yachty in some capacity, worked with boats, and still to this day they do. And I'm immensely proud of the team that they are. They all juggle different, part-time for us and part-time other things, but are very invested in what they do and are genuinely really nice, super people, feet on the ground. So that's enabled us, to keep the guide where it is and the platform where it is. And then we moved back to England as a family, and ran it from here.
What was that, because you're pretty nomadic family. What was it like, can you remember how you reacted as a family coming to
it's been, we certainly missed the barefoot lifestyle. I got told off as I went into Sainsbury's once because I hadn't even realised that my number 3 was in barefoot. Didn't have shoes on. So, the children, my 4 had really grown up in Antigua, and my youngest, Emily, was just turning 3 when she came back to England. So she probably has the least memories of the Caribbean, but life was pretty easygoing. intense and pretty full on, because there wasn't internet shopping and all sorts of things happened in Antigua. People glamorize Antigua thinking it must be, and it is the most beautiful island and place to live. But, you do run out of water and gas and everything else and all the challenges that comes with living on an island. So coming to England was a bit of a shock, but, they embraced it, and the opportunities for the children were huge, from sporting to academics at school. So we embraced it. Weather was definitely a challenge. And
no, I suppose you hadn't got a wardrobe for it.
No.
It's a big spend straight.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, we raided charity shops very fast for lots of coats and all sorts of things that we could for the children as they grew out of everything fast. So it was, and friends who know me will laugh. I'm not a very good planner in terms of I don't live a life where everything is planned and ahead. And I found that slightly shocking in England, that actually I did have to plan. And I'm much more of a go with the flow, which came from living in Antigua. If you woke up on a Saturday morning and it looked like we had a weather system coming in, you would not go to Half Moon Bay. You would change and do something else. And yet here everything is much more meticulously planned.
But you're lucky, like your kids. Are you still in a parent school chat? Like I'm in, and your WhatsApp group chat about. It's quite intense. It is quite
very intense. And I will just say to all those parents who are in WhatsApp groups, we all managed to get our children through school without WhatsApp and without those things. So sometimes it's better not. So yes, when Tristan went through school, at the stage that Emily is now, there's a 12-year age gap between my eldest and my youngest, number 4. And a lot has changed in that time. But what's interesting is numbers and alphabet hasn't changed, and the human form hasn't changed, but a lot of other stuff seems to have done. And I'm not sure all of it is for better. So yeah, we can survive without WhatsApp groups. So, living in England had lots of different things, but it was very special to be closer to my mother, who was around and is still around. And she has taken a big interest in my children growing up. And I've got siblings and cousins, and that's, really special from living away. So it has. And yes, do I miss the weather? Of course I do. And miss very close friends that I've developed I became a mother in Mallorca. And as you know, when you become a mum, people come into your lives, don't they?
Yeah.
For different stages. And then I have a different group of friends in Antigua who absolutely we went through sitting on pigeon, and husbands who were away because they were yacht captains, and programs being changed, and thinking that daddy was coming home for Christmas and he's not coming home because the boss trip was changed, and understanding all those challenges of, relationships and yachting life. So albeit that I didn't actively work on a vessel then, or Andrew wasn't, we were so part of the community, I suppose. It seems to have been, it's journeyed with us.
I think community is one of the things when women leave, because obviously speaking to a lot of them, that's what they miss, and obviously obviously I still work within the industry, and, that was your transition out, but it wasn't really a transition out. She worked within the industry. The community, because it's, I don't know, through experience, it is quite tight knit. And I do, after talking to lots of women, they do really miss that camaraderie, which is not really about, it can be not be about anything that much at all, but, supporting someone who has had the bad news that their partner's not going to be around for Christmas or a funeral or something like that. That's quite unique support.
It is unique. And, I've always, and when you started Yacht Pearls of Wisdom, which I felt was an amazing thing to start and a brilliant way to bring in, and it doesn't have to be women, but it was for women, bringing them together in different aspects of our lives was such a good idea, because exactly what you said, if you're in the military or the Navy, the Navy scoop you up and look after you, so that when the ship or your husband who's on is away for period of time isn't coming back, there's a sort of safety net to scoop you up, and you're with fellow people in the same situation. So, the pigeon beach of us wives sitting, caring for each other, because none of us had our families on board, and we're all multicultural, multinational, different parts of the world. It was holding somebody's baby or watching that toddler with armbands whilst mum was sitting feeding number 2 under the tree, feeling pretty gutted that suddenly the plans she had have been completely upturned. And she can't complain to her husband because he's also feeling dreadful. But, where does the salary come from?
Yeah.
So I think it's a wonderful community, isn't it, that is scattered all over the world, and it is slightly nomadic. And we find ourselves either going back to our places of birth or not, but living, close but far. And, the internet hasn't helped that, has it? Because although we can keep in touch, we may not physically see each other. So I think those first few lunches that you did with Yacht Pearls of Wisdom was so valuable, because there was no real agenda except bringing people together, which was very, very special.
Yeah, it's one of the, like I said, it's one of those things to understand, the feeling and the disappointment. And like you said, you can't moan because obviously, your partner's making money. That's, what it does. But you still want to vent about it. And, it's one of those realities. My stepson has got a girlfriend she's not part of the industry, and I'm just helping her, like managing her expectations. He's going to be away. I know you love him to bits, but there will be times where you'll be infuriated that he was supposed to come back and he's not. And it's not that he doesn't want to. That's just the job. You do have to, it doesn't make it any easier if you have been part of the industry. You've married the job, in a way.
Yeah, I think totally.
Because it is so showy and so glamorous. I think it's easy to forget that it is, there are lots of similarities to being, in the military and your partner's on duty and all of those kind of things. There are, which, like you said, it's really hard to create any kind of community to support each other.
And don't you think, reality is very different to what people's either expectations joining the industry are, or the reality of what's on board? Because, with the explosion of social media, it is amazing, but, nobody is appearing on there in their real, the hard, some things we see, but the hard graft of, leathering off for the 10th time because it's poured with rain, and, cleaning that shower because it's already impeccable. Superyacht standards are ridiculous, and it's impeccable. To, all the relationships on board. It's hard. You live and you work with people that you may not choose to be your friends if you were shore-based.
The opportunity, if you're given the choice.
You're a wife, the relationship-wise, it's never really talked about very much. But, it's not easy to hold a marriage together, as we well know, because the statistics are sadly not very good to hold a marriage together. And, I remember sitting on the beaches with wives and thinking, there's new stewardesses on board. I don't even know them. I've never met them. And, your husband is the captain or whoever it is on board. And then, that captain does come home and he's a husband and a father, but he's used to sort of shouting orders to a crew. And suddenly he's trying to order the family that has been actually ticking over and working quite well because the wife has had to. It's hard.
It's really common.
It's really common. And there isn't, I don't think there's anything.
Children, the partner comes back and tries to get involved with the child rearing when, you've got in a routine. It's one of those things that's quite common after speaking to some ladies that have worked on board that they've then gone ashore with families. The hardest part for them is giving up because obviously they just run a tight ship to make sure that they can cope on their own. Getting used to a partner being back is generally when it can be most fractious between you and your partner, because, you just, I know for myself, just want to get the job done.
Yeah.
I want to get it done.
Absolutely. It is hard. And I think all those aspects of relationships, whether it be on board or ashore on board, are actually challenging. And I don't think because the industry is sprawled all over the place, we don't have that structure like military or the Navy has, where there is a sort of level of support coming, because it's endless amounts of loads of private services, isn't it? Yeah. So there are some amazing people out there doing some amazing things, but you have to, as a private individual, engage with them.
I mean, it's easier for some, you know, if you're in a hot spot, you know, the south of France is, you know, they've got different communities in all the ports, you know, and obviously I'm on the south coast. So there's quite, you know, it's quite common, especially closer you get to the New Forest, there's more stews.
You can see why yachties are that. Yeah, and you can them. Yeah, you can see why yachties end up, you know, being there. And it, you know, it always makes me laugh because we get estate agents, real estate, American word, recommendations for companies, and it's all the hotspots, because it's basically where crew are buying houses for moving ashore for their families. Yeah. So it's got a natural evolution, hasn't it, how it happens?
Yeah, I always wanted to live in the New Forest, but Tim said we couldn't afford it. So I was just gutted, you know. Thought I could be a Brockenhurst or a Lyndhurst lady. But Chichester's not too bad. So, but yeah, it's quite crazy. I always joke that there's loads of women that snuck off to the New Forest to give birth, like little birds, all hanging around in there. So just to take the story on, could you obviously just tell us what happened to Andrew and where Superyacht Services Guide is now going?
Of course I can. Yeah, of course I can. So many people, we came back to England in 2012, and hindsight is a wonderful thing, isn't it? And I have to tell the story of remembering of how it was then, not how I know now. But it soon became apparent to me that things just weren't making much sense in terms of how Andrew was functioning, and in all honesty, how our relationship was, because we were this amazingly strong team, and it was very easy to put things and say, oh, we've just moved country, we run our own business. He was very, very close to my father, and my father died in an accident quite suddenly, and that really affected Andrew. So it was easy to sort of think all these different things, and that's why we're tired, we're stressed, but my knowledge of neurology, there was something in me that was like, there's something not right here. And anyway, roll on a few years. My poor Andrew was diagnosed with an young-onset dementia, which is a young-onset dementia is something that is diagnosed under 65, but he was particularly young. He was 50, just turning 50. Very rare, and a lot of unknown things about it. I know now, sadly, how the journey went and how it ended. You know, so he was from diagnosis to when we lost him was 8.5 years. But at the time, I didn't know how this was going to be, and I was very much prepared by the medical teams to say that he could well be alive for 15 or 20 years. They thought it was going to be a slow progression and deterioration. So suddenly it was all hands on deck for me. Tristan was mid-teens. Emily was 4. We have a business. Harsh reality, just like we talked about wives being on their own and having to stomach the fact that your husband's away for Christmas because he's a yacht captain and the boss has changed his mind. You know, the physio, the what shall I do with my life wasn't there for me at all. It was, I need to feed my family. I need to work. But I'm also needing to care because my husband at the moment is okay, but not really okay. And I don't know how this is going to deteriorate. I know sort of, but we don't know which symptoms are going to show. So it was a very, very challenging time, in all honesty.
Was there a moment where you think like, oh, fuck, you've got 4 children, you've got to care for your husband, and you've got to run a business?
A lot of those moments, yeah. It was a lot of those moments. And I honestly look back now and I think I seem to be permanently exhausted. And I think it's possibly those years coming out now later of just this deep-rooted reality of what we went through, as a family, of understanding, gosh, it really was, honestly, I hate to use the word, but it was pretty shitty. It was tough, really, really tough. And I don't think there was much choice. I just had to get on with it. And that's my nature, my positive nature, for good or for better or worse. And it really was those vows, for better or worse. Andrew was part of the brain that was diagnosed, was very affected, was his insight. And it's something that is so unusual with the dementias. There was my physio knowledge took me to know that if we volunteered for research in London, we would probably get a little bit more care. So there's no treatment. You are diagnosed and left on your own. And that was what it was. So I came home, my knees folded when I was told in hospital. Andrew at that stage was told, but he didn't really even understand the enormity of it. So it's not like having by the time you get to diagnosis, it's not like the really sad cases of motor neurone disease that you get told you've got something, or cancer. He couldn't take the enormity on board, so it really landed on my shoulders. And Queen Square in London is the absolute world-renowned centre for rare dementias, and a couple of amazing consultants there were, as and when I did have access to them and contact to them, sort of helped me understand. But there was a lot of, oh shit moments, I don't know how I'm going to do this.
I think going back to what you said like earlier in us talking, you created not only a business but a worldwide family. Like the people that you worked with in the guide really, like you've said, extended family, I suppose, at that, that moment, they really need.
They did, and they were amazing. They really took hold of their areas, and I learnt on the job. I had never been shown what an Excel spreadsheet was. No, which physio is taught an Excel spreadsheet? It's not something, and I didn't grow up with the internet. I did all my exams handwritten. I did my dissertation for being a physio handwritten. So, I wasn't internet. So I had to learn really, really fast. And I'm still learning because I haven't done a business degree. So, it was hard, and the team really tightened up. They were amazing at carrying out their roles. And, as a business, we lost our best salesman because Andrew was amazing. He lived it. He breathed it. I always said he could sell ice to the Eskimos. He was a great guy and a lived experience. So what he started and what people came on was his character. He had a big character. And he was. So, not only was I caring for somebody that I dearly loved, but from a business perspective, we'd lost somebody who was our best salesman. So it was hard. We've had some really tough years. And then, the ethos of the company remained. We did what we could. COVID came. That was really tough for us and tough for everybody in the industry. Tough emotionally for us as a family because it coincided with Andrew really deteriorating and then dying. And the business was at, pretty low. But, we got there. There was a business, there was an ethos, big desire. And I now can say that 3 years on, my eldest, Tristan, who is in his very late 20s, finished a university degree. He went and worked for 2.5 years with other companies. And it was not something that I ever pushed his way. He very much came to me. And that's my mothering side of it. It's difficult when you run a business that you don't want to put that on your children. I don't think any of us do. But, he very much came to me, and it's been, suck and see, step by step. The first boat show he came to, he was still working full time with another company, and he came just with a week's holiday and just came to observe and see what he thought. And it's gone from strength to strength. And, he's a complete natural. And, I can say that he really enjoys it. And he's very good, and he's got a very inquisitive mind. So for him, the internet side of it for him is really interesting. So it's a unique combination to have a mother and son. We still have a really strong team out there. And he does a huge amount of research out, feet on the ground, but it's an unusual combination to use what I bring to the table and to have what he brings to the table and combine it together. Very lucky.
How do you think Andrew would have felt knowing that Tristan's
I think he'd be
side.
deeply thrilled. And Andrew was if there ever was a, liver of life, and he was a great motivator to people to say to them, do what you love, and life's too short. And little did he know what lay ahead for him, really. So it's remarkable, the story that we had. We were so nomadic, and I now own a house, but I never owned a house till this is my first home, and I'm late 50s, because we lived life to enjoy life. And thank goodness we did, because I could have never had those opportunities with him and have a big mortgage. So I think he would be thrilled. I think he'd be, thrilled that here we are 23 years on, still doing it, that we've grown. Whether he would have understood all the internet side of it and the search engines, I don't know. But the concept of it, which is selling what we do, is still absolutely what he started on that day one. And he very much felt that it had to come. I think, you and I share the welfare side of things and the platforms that are happening and the well-being. And, the talk in the room is, we need crew to be part of this as well. It's not just everyone who's shore-based. And I think Andrew would be, deeply thrilled that the team is still people who've worked on yachts working, so that they come with that knowledge, and that desire to have a good quality of life. So, they're living in amazing places in the world and juggling work so that they can have that quality of life. So part of it is working with us. So I think he would be. And, there's more Blatters. There are 4, and Tristan's the eldest of 4. So who knows where this goes?
Well, it's one of those things, especially in the UK, like the definition of family business, what that actually means, has been quite a hot topic recently. And it's, your business has always been a family business, but to have that next generation, I think it's quite an emotional, it's quite a lovely moment that, he's in
and,
to invest back into that incredible experience that gave you an amazing life.
No, it is. It's really special, particularly that we've, for us, we've lost Andrew and he's no longer here. So there's a legacy side of it, but there's also a connection side of it. And, each of the children is unique because they're a combination of Andrew and I, and there are familial things and traits that they will have. But Tristan has found, and he will recount when he's been out and about, and just now he's just done the Antigua Charter Show. And, one of the yacht captains that he met has been a yacht captain for a while and had been giving Andrew recommendations for the Caribbean Guide. And here he is suddenly, 12 years on, dealing with Andrew's son, giving recommendations. And, there are really beautiful moments like that for me, bring the human element side of yachting. Thank goodness there is a human side of it, because we all are humans and we all care, and we do some wonderful things and we do some massive big mess ups, but own it. And be empathetic to each other and care. So it is really special. And, particularly in Mallorca, where we were doing a lot of feet on the ground, research each year. And last year and this year when Tristan was there, he would walk into a service, and a couple of times he'd call me back, and he'd got back into the car and been quite emotional, saying, I walked in and they just said, Ma, it's like your dad, and he doesn't necessarily look like Andrew, but there's a familial feel, and that's really touching. It's very special. So very lucky,
special. And it's, in all honesty, your husband had obviously made such an impact. It's lovely that he gets to, because if he wasn't part of the business, those moments and knowing his father through other people's eyes perhaps wouldn't happen quite so much.
No, and it's really special, isn't it, for people, for children who lose a parent, and that's regardless of whether you're a yachty or not. And there are some awful acrimonious divorces and separations, and that's also a loss. And, you know, as these children grow up and get older, to be able to have that connection with people who've, you know, I love nothing more than meeting someone who may have worked with my father who is no longer around. Roll it as an example for us, it's really special. So, and that's the yachting family, isn't it? And, you know, we're now finding people that I knew who were at school with my children are working on board vessels. Some of them are, you know, America's Cup sailors. And, you know, I knew them in school uniforms. It's really special. But it is really special. So, you know, and long may our industry have that, because for all the negativity, which every society and every industry has it, there is no perfect industry. There are some amazing opportunities and wonderful things that come with yachts and super yachts and the people involved. It's not all negative. There are some things that are really tough, and I'm really sorry for those experiences.
All negative because it's addictive, because the good stuff is so good, and that's why we're all here. And, you know, we've left the boats and we're still trying to get into the industry in some way, because it is, you know, the human element. I think probably one of the reasons why we join these groups and go to these seminars and stuff like that is the reason why it's good. And I think sometimes it doesn't get recognized as much as it should. And I think that's why we're all on the periphery going, we need to put more value in the human element than it's been, you know, in what's going on right now. That's why, you know, that's why we fight the good fight.
Exactly. And the oceans have been around for ages, haven't they? The oceans have been, you know, people have been sailing them. It's nothing new, but the industry when I say industry, you know, when Commander Nicholson decided that it might be a good idea to gather, I think, 15 yachts that chartered in the Caribbean, in Antigua, so that people could view them in 1964. You know, the first charter show, or 63. When he gathered those boats, you know, little did he know that the industry would be like it is today. But that was the first gathering of vessels to say, if you pay me some money, you can come with your family and stay on board my boat for a week. That was charter. And, you know, look at it now. You know, and that the huge variation. We've got vessels that are at over 100 meters. I mean, that's what they run in the Olympic sprint, and that's a vessel, you know.
They're big old cruise ships, basically. I said about this earlier. They're a big old cruise ship, but it's just a different shape and not as many people.
Now, and how can you regulate an industry, you know, like that from...
That's definitely time for another podcast. We could probably fill a whole episode talking about the industry. But just to kind of finish up, what are the next 5 years of your life and the guide? What do you let's manifest. Where do you want to see yourself?
My goodness. I don't think I can even answer that question, Cherise, in all honesty, because I think for so much of my life, and particularly the last 10 years, have been a survival. I haven't quite got into that looking ahead. And I'm a person who doesn't expect from life, because I think every day the present is good. But if we can have our health and, you know, have my family around me, that would be amazing. And we've got some exciting evolution going on with the platform of what we're doing and how sharing information is. And, you know, long may that continue, I think. And if there's more Blatters that end up working in the Superyacht Services Guide space, it's because it's meant to happen. But, you know, it will continue as it is. I think we're still printing, and I still question whether we should be printing other areas of the world, in what capacity. I think there might be some specialist little handbooks that come out. Maybe that might be for the future. AI is definitely part of the future and how we handle that. And I'm a big community person. You know, I would, if spare time that I don't have is involved with that aspect of it, that would be really special. And I will pour my heart and soul in a very real, meaningful way to helping however I can help. I don't feel I can bring much to the table. There's a lot of people who are way more qualified than me. But objectively connecting people, I'm a big connector and I don't want things for it. But whether it's connecting a captain to a really good service or two people that should be speaking because they're both trying to do something and they don't even know of each other. I'm a big connector. So, I hope the industry evolves in a really positive way, and in a very real way.
Well, there's definitely more people on the move now. I think, from when I started, Pearls, and I'm sure you've seen, there's definitely more voices trying to kind of push things along. There's a lot of the realities of the industry that we can't be ignored anymore. But we shall continue to.
It's an evolution, isn't it? It's an evolution. And those of us who are so lucky to be parents, it could be our children. We're doing it for the legacy side, aren't we? We're doing it for...
I don't know whether I'll be able to cope if my child went on board. I'm like, oh, that makes me want to make a hustle even more. All right, if she's going to do it. I mean, she's only 5 at the moment. So there's a few years for me to try and make sure it's, it's the best that it can.
Yeah, now you need to keep doing what you
live already.
You hold a very special space in the industry, Cherise, for what you're doing, and it's coming from your heart and your knowledge of the industry and the people in your circle. So you're in a very good space. You must keep going with what you're doing because it's very special. I have great faith. I'm very proud of what you've done because I know it's not been easy. Really important. And you know what's really special about you, Cherise, is that you don't do it for stage presence or applause at all. You're doing it for the community that you have created around you. And for me, that is, it's the most important of all, really.
One of the things and my motivation, and obviously I've spoken to, I've said this in previous episodes, women are incredible creatures. We really are. The more I learn about women, not just from our generation, been reading about the female experience throughout the ages kind of thing. We are incredible creatures and what we have to deal with and the adversity and stuff like that. But we are our worst champions generally most of the time. And I'm just always in awe. People like yourself, we all face such adversity, but we all, that's why community is important because you need to realize how strong you are. And a lot of the times your struggles are not unique. You can surmount it just as easy as a woman next to you, but you need to understand that it's surmountable, and that's what I want this podcast and all of the other stuff that we do, you can do it. You can create a business, you can survive, what you've survived, and you come out at the end and you're still a beautiful, lovely person and new things are on the horizon, and that should, resonate with all of us. We can do it.
And reach out to each other. There's nothing wrong with showing vulnerability, and asking questions. I started a dementia choir in Petersfield where I live through my experiences with Andrew. And it's the prime example of community that we talk about with yachting. It's bringing people together. They're all different stages and walks of life, but they have something in common that they are faced with and they're struggling. And the dialogue and community that brings in this safe space is huge. So whether it's the safe space of Yacht Pearls of Wisdom or the space that is the Super Yacht Forum at Metz, or, in very different ways, I hope that community and that people side of it, we never lose it. It's very powerful.
No, it's, it is very powerful. We're all very powerful. It's a great industry. And yeah, it's connected great people. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast,
Cherise.
Always a pleasure to talk to you. And hopefully we'll be speaking to your son very soon to expand on the Blatter story, which I'm
from the other perspective.
Yes. But in the meantime, I hope obviously the Christmas decorations move forward a little bit further.
Thank you. We say mid-December.
So, dear listeners, if you've enjoyed this episode, there's tons more coming out. Happy New Year to you all, and I'll see you again soon.
Boom, 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 boom.